So, have you ever wondered what it's like to play in a museum setting? If so, today is your day to find out. I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest on the Adventures in Learning podcast. We are going to be talking to Chris McEachron. He is the manager of visitor engagement at the Kentucky Science Center. I met him at the Play Conference, and I am so excited to be able to talk about play and STEM learning today. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. So, I'm going to start with a question I love to ask, which is tell us about your adventures in learning. What led you to being at the Kentucky Science Center? Did you grow up saying, I want to be at a museum, or did it sort of happen in a more
No,
roundabout way?
yeah, kind of the opposite, in fact. When I was a child, I didn't associate learning with something that was awesome. I didn't even know what learning was, and probably until I was mid to late 20s, I didn't have a clear understanding of what learning was and how learning could be the most awesome thing that people can do. Um, so until that point, I had been an outdoor educator and I had been working with adult groups. Um, and in my late 20s, I fell in with a children's museum and realized that all of the things that I had been working with adult groups and teaching people how to do in the woods, everything that I was teaching people how to do, kids already do. Kids do innately and naturally. And I decided instead of trying to teach older people how to do those things, it made more sense to enforce that in kids and try to maintain it as long as possible.
So let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah.
You were doing outdoor education with grown-ups.
Yes.
What were some of those qualities? What are the specific things that you sort of went, oh, kids do this too? I'm curious just about what
Yeah.
what the things were in terms of play.
Specifically, those things were creativity, creating a shared mental model, having a communicated vision with other people, working together to a common goal. All of these things that children do instinctually. That's how they interact with the world. They can um, they they can create these worlds and other children buy into them so quickly, whereas adults we have to establish all the criteria and be clear about the rules, and kids just go for it and amazing things happen as a result.
So, talk about what it means to be the manager of visitor engagement at the Kentucky Science Center. What does that mean for those who aren't museum world people?
For those that aren't museum world people, my role is to take care of all things that basically the visitor sees when they come to visit the museum. So I'm looking at the floor experience a little bit with the exhibits, but mostly with how people engage with those exhibits, how people engage with my staff, and how people come away from the museum. So it's really important that when for me, I want visitors to leave the science center with more questions than when they got there. I want them to leave the science center thinking, "Man, I'd love to learn a little bit more about this XYZ." And
So,
I really
how do you
encourage this
foster
happen.
that for them?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
if I were walking into the museum today, tell me how
yes,
we would foster sort of that feeling on my way out.
absolutely. You know, I think a really big part of that is the staff that we hire, the educators that we have at the Kentucky Science Center. We hire because they're already passionate about something. I'm not looking for cookie cutter educators. I'm not looking for somebody that can do exactly the same thing that I do when we're on the floor. I'm looking for someone that can really share their joy of stop motion animation, or really explore the skulls that we have and share how excited they are about these things. um, when our guests see that our staff are excited about these ideas, they want to come away with more. They want to dig into more things.
Well, and I know that I've been doing some of that quirkiness to you in the time since we've become acquainted because I I've been bugging Chris about the cicadas in Kentucky for over a month, sort of tracing their path and following it. So I remember from my own museum days that you are looking for that kind of passion and the
Yeah.
ability to be able to share your passion with others and listen to theirs. And you do a really
Mhm.
good job with that. So, how do you see the museum's role in helping families and educators be able to um, connect STEM and play in a fun way?
It's so important. It's so important. As we all know, parents are children's first teachers. And I think a really important aspect of that is that the adults in children's lives feel empowered and feel confident and competent in that role. And we exist in a world, where most adults in children's lives are not PhD holding professional educators. So they have this idea that, oh, I'm not qualified for this. But in fact, they are. Just by interacting with children, just by doing the things that they do on a daily basis and making a game out of it, learning happens in a really, really big way. Um, Cooking with your children, gardening with your children, hunting and fishing with your children. These are things that really inspire growth and learning in hugely meaningful ways that sometimes we as adults don't see because we're not the professionals, right? Um, so one of the things I really hope to do is encourage adults and model what effective interactions look like, and that they don't have to feel like they're a pedigreed professional to positively impact these children's lives.
So, does that happen informally, like when families are on the floor, you're engaging with the kid, but you're also drawing in the grown up, sort of modeling ways to engage?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or does it
And
happen in a more formal way as well? Is it both informal and formal?
no, much more informal. One of the programs that I manage is something called Science and Play to Go, where we actually take aspects of our early childhood programming and install it in libraries all over the state of Kentucky.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a very cool thing. They're 3-month installations. We hire local staff to facilitate it, and the big idea is that these people in these communities, they may be 2 hours away from Louisville, where I'm located, but for some of these families, 2 hours might as well be on the moon. Like they're never going to come to the Kentucky Science Center. They're never going to come to Louisville. But by putting things in these communities, we're creating this idea that the community has wisdom and the community has this important thing that we want to pass on to the next generation. And by hiring local staff, we're really tailoring these exhibits to those communities. So, for example, in Eastern Kentucky, we call them play specialists, our staff out there. We had a play specialist that decided that they really needed to create a whole theme around Appalachian culture, um, and brought a lot of that into it. In Western Kentucky, very far Western Kentucky, it's a pretty big state. We had another play specialist that really wanted to do stuff about the Great Plains and bison because that's part of
They're
that
right
region.
there. Sure.
They're right there, and by catering, by coming up with ways to share these experiences with the community, for them, to them, with them, we're showing adults that they can be these primary teachers, and the research that we do supports that. We have caregivers fill out surveys, and a lot of these themes that are coming back are things like, I never knew that cooking could be science, or I trust my child now to help with gardening. These types of things they're huge, they're big time, and science is happening whether or not you have a PhD or anything like that.
Well, and I love the idea that you've got these play specialists all over the state, basically helping to connect the community and science, whether they ever come to your museum or not. That seems like it's a very powerful way to take that idea of learning through play and help to spread it out.
And what's especially cool, the exhibit only stays for 3 months, but many libraries have created their own aspects of the exhibit that can live on. Many libraries have hired their play specialists on as staff. We're on library 30 right now. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and we're seeing the impact all over the state.
So, what are some of the other programs you're offering at the Kentucky Science Center that you feel are sort of helping to get at the heart of play and learning?
Yeah. Uh, so one of my favorites, it's a little bit outside of my direct scope, but I love it. It's something called pulsive surgery. And
Okay.
pulsive surgery is a live open heart surgery uh, on a human that we have students seventh grade and up are live streaming in, video streaming in. Sometimes they're on site at the Kentucky Science Center, sometimes they're at their own locations. They're live streaming in, they're talking to the doctors, nurses, anesthesiologists, everybody in the room, asking questions, answering questions. There's this dialogue happening. Um, it's pretty amazing. We have examples of the instruments that the doctors are using in the room with us that we're exploring how things work together, and it's such a cool example of what things can be. One of the things I really like about that is currently one of the folks in the operating room at University of Louisville, where we're partnered with, first was exposed to the medical world through pulsive surgery. That's how long
Oh,
we've been doing
wow.
it.
So, a full
Yeah,
circle moment.
full
So,
circle.
they came to the museum, they got to watch a live streamed open heart surgery,
Hmm.
explore the materials, and now they're doing the surgeries that other kids are coming to see.
Yes,
That's
yes.
amazing. I love that full circle moment.
It's such a neat program, but I like that example because nobody thinks that the you go to a pulse surgery, and whether you're into it or not, right,
Right.
everybody thinks that this is cool, this is an important thing. And I always ask my educators, why is this important? And they there's a lot of easy answers, because of that full circle, because you get exposure to something that you've never seen before, all types of things. Nobody ever says because pulsive surgery is important. So seventh grade Johnny can leave the science center, see someone clutch their chest, go down on Main Street. Little Johnny pulls out a pocket knife and says, "I got this," right? Because that's not the goal. that's that's absurd, but we sometimes make that mistake with other forms of learning. We make that mistake that the goal is to get it right and to memorize things and to
What a
learn these
great
things.
point. We're not
Yeah.
asking them to perform open heart
No.
surgery. And when
No.
they come to our museum, we're not asking them to go construct a building or
No.
to um, create a strand of DNA or anything like that. We're really asking them to ask the questions
Mhm.
and to be able to be curious and to take that curiosity into their everyday lives when they leave us.
Exactly. And pulse is such an easy way to see that, but everywhere else in our science center, it gets blurry. Everywhere else, well, did we actually make that ramp that the ball goes down? Did it do three loop de loops, or did you fail? Right? It's no, that's not, none of that matters.
And it's not about failing in
Right.
quotes, and I think that we often think that it's a success failure. You did it, you didn't do it. But so much of the engineering design process is really about those moments of failure because you learn more from when things don't work than you do from when they do work. And so, okay, you didn't make your three loops with the roller coaster. What do you need to do? Do you need to go higher? Do you need to have fewer loops? You keep playing. And I think if we can encourage it from a playful standpoint, you're able to wind out the experience a little bit more. Kids are able to connect more into it. And hopefully, it's going to get their grown-ups involved in
Yeah.
playing and exploring as well.
Well, we have another exhibit in our early childhood area. It's called the Shapes and Stuff Store. It's your typical shopping experience for kids. Little shopping carts and signs and cash registers and everything. The big difference is that instead of shopping for boxes of cereal or ham or whatever, they're just full of shapes, colors, textures, circles,
Cool.
squares. Yeah, all sorts of stuff. And it's nice because it kind of takes whatever sort of like gender or cultural barriers might be in the way of shopping out of it, and really looks at sorting and categorizing and putting blue shapes with blue shapes. Um, and I work with my educators a lot to remind them that, let's say a child is putting a red shape in with the blue shape. That's not wrong. That's not wrong. They might not just have the words to express why they're categorizing it in that way. So we really want to ask, tell me more about this. We're setting learning into a place that can happen at the at our guests' pace and speed and place rather than ours. I tell my educators all the time, every child that comes into the Science Center, every single one knows more about play than we do. And they're all better learners than we are teachers. And if we remember that power structure, we're okay.
I love that. And it flips the way that we think about things in schools and in life, I think
Mm-hmm.
upside down, but you're absolutely right. They're so close to the heart of play, and we're really learning from them the things that we forgot.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all started out being able to play, and over time and space, many of us lost touch with that. Um, and I love the fact that you're reminding your educators to take that moment. I was talking to an educator recently. We were saying, one of the things that as grown-ups we need to do is to count 5 Mississippi before we intervene, before we jump in,
I love that.
and to just let the kids play, to take the time to observe, and then not to label it, but to do what you just did, to ask the question, tell me more, or,
Yeah.
explain, can you help me see what you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. So how else can we help to we both agree play is so important. What are some
Yes.
other ways that we can sort of help put play front and center for folks?
I think one of the most important things that we as adults can do is just to be better at recognizing when play is happening. Yeah, I think we all, most people will say yes, play is important. Uh, but I think most adults don't have a clear idea in their head of what play is, how do they recognize when it's happening, and how do they support it when it is. Uh, so because play for adults is almost counterintuitive. It's at its heart, the means is more important than the end with play, and it's intrinsically motivated, and it's fun. And if you're doing something that's intrinsically motivated to you, that is important to you because you want to do it, what's my role as an extrinsic motivator? It's a complicated thing,
Right.
but it's also not, right? Because what's my role as an extrinsic motivator is to say, cool, how can I help? You lead, I'll follow.
I love that. And look, we have these materials if you want to explore them.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of look what we have to offer if this will be useful in your play.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. So I love picture books, and I think we
Yes.
talked about this at the conference in terms of one of the things I love to do is to connect picture books and STEM and help
Yes.
teachers sort of find that hands on, playful way of doing that so that you get to do all of it: play, STEM,
Mm-hmm.
literacy. Are there picture books that you've fallen in love with as an educator, maybe through your work at the museum, through your work as an educator that you like to use?
Yes. So just about 6 months ago or so, we started hosting story times at the Science Center. Um, we host story times on Sunday mornings, and that's just because in Louisville there's a lot of libraries that do a lot of story times throughout the week, but Sunday morning seems to have a little gap. But we struggled for a while to figure out what story time at the Science Center is. Because we really want to try to stay away from some of the like really anthropomorphized,
Right.
just fun story. I mean, fun is good, but there's
But
got to be
you
a
want to
reason.
do stories where you're providing windows and mirrors for folks.
Exactly. So we found two that I really like that we do frequently, and we're always on the lookout for more. The first one that we do all the time is "The Sun Is My Favorite Star" by Frank Ash. Um, this one came across my radar in preparation for the eclipse, which
Mm-hmm.
was I think
In
like
April.
90%. Yeah, it was like 90% totality in Louisville. So
Cool.
it was enough to see some cool stuff.
That's kind of what we had here in Virginia as well.
Yeah. So the sun is my favorite star. Fit checks the boxes perfectly for me. It has this concept. The sun is my favorite star. There's the repetition, the beautiful art, the the story where the narrator is saying, "This is my favorite star. This is why the sun is my favorite star." At no point in time, and this is why I love it, does it say the sun is a star.
It's not
So
direct instruction, it's giving it to you
exactly,
from a more informal, lyrical way.
exactly, and I really like that concept because it's exactly what you said earlier. Here's the situation. Here's the scenario we're setting, and then our listeners can choose how they want to interpret the pieces, how they want to utilize the pieces. And we always pair story time with activities, and that activity is usually something in the vein of what's your favorite star. And depending on the educators that are doing it, it becomes a craft or a drawing or you know
Sure.
however they want to do it. Um, and about half the kids will say the sun, and about half the kids will say some other star or a fictional star or a constellation or whatever. But I love the concept. It's such a safe, easy, good science concept.
Sure.
And then there's another one, and forgive me, I forget the author of this, but it's called "There's a Monster in My Book."
Okay.
And "There's a Monster in My Book" is all about physics.
Ooh.
Uh, and I wish I had a copy of it with me right now. But essentially, you open it up, and there's a monster in my book, and then it says it runs to the side, and then you turn it over, and like you're supposed to turn the book like this, and the next page, the monster is all scrunched up in the. Um, so it explores gravity and how things are related in once again a safe way. It never says this is how things fall, this is how things move. It's just this is the book.
I like that. I recently discovered an author, Jason M. Burns, who has done a whole series of STEM fairy tales,
Oh, cool.
like Jack and the Beanstalk and the Cloudy Day, and it's done in a graphic format. So it's comic book style, and you've got the content sort of in some of the panels, and it's delivered in kind of a snarky kid friendly way, but it
Yeah.
definitely lends itself beautifully. There's so many just amazing picture books out there that you can
Mhm.
use in that science story time context. So I'm glad you guys are doing that.
Yeah.
Um,
And
what?
I know
Oh, go
I
ahead.
know I know picture books are awesome, but there is one other book that we do frequently. You've probably
Yeah.
heard, and it's The Book with No Pictures by BJ Novak.
Yes, BJ Novak.
um, that's a fun one to really explore expression.
Well, it's so good for the sounds and
Uh-huh.
imagination and letting kids sort of create their own. What does that look like? I really like that. Are there any additional like special projects or initiatives you guys have going on at the Kentucky Science Center right now?
Seems like thousands every day. Our biggest one right now is summer camp. Um, so it's a pretty big institution. So we have either 9 or 10 week-long summer camps every week for 10 weeks.
Wow.
Each one with about 25 kids in
And I thought I was doing well with 4 a week for 9 weeks. Or
it.
I'm like, you just blew my mind. That's double what I was doing. That's incredible. And what do you guys cover in your summer camps? Like, what are some of the themes that you all explore?
All sorts of stuff. The big ones this summer, the ones that have sold out, are all of our pre-Ks are doing really well, but also our computer-based ones for fourth, fifth, sixth grade. Minecraft, Roblox, coding, those types of things are doing really well. But we also have a chemistry camp that's themed after Harry Potter and
Yep.
potions.
I
There's
did a
a
Hogwarts adventure camp that was so
yeah,
much fun.
There's a forensics camp that's themed off of an escape room.
Cool.
There's uh, uh, there's hundreds.
Well, one of the things I love about museum educators is that ability to make the connection between pop culture and play, because that is an aspect of play for so many kids, and then connect it organically back to the science and the STEM and the museum. And I think that that's something that maybe we lose sight of, is the ability to connect to kids' interests. You know, what is it that they're interested in? And not every camp's going to appeal to every kid,
No.
but by offering that wide menu, you're giving kids and families a chance to engage and find the place where they intersect and find their home.
And not just kids, right? Like going back full circle to what I said earlier, it's important for adults to understand that they have a role in this learning as well. And often pop culture is how we play as adults. That's what we're familiar with, what we're comfortable with. So by making it very overt, hey, yeah, your opinions on the Marvel universe somehow are relevant to your child's education is big time. And I think parents respond to that as well.
Absolutely. So, Chris, how do you play today?
How do I play today? Depends on the day. I like being outside a lot. I think my outdoor educator roots are still strong there. Interestingly, I've also gotten very into Minecraft. Um,
Interesting. Fun.
yeah, about 7 years ago, I had a little brother through the YMCA, and he was into Minecraft, and like, I got to do this thing, right? And it took 2 years for me to figure out how to do anything other than just dig myself into a hole in the ground. And the only reason I kept doing it is because he really wanted to play Minecraft. Okay, cool, let's do that. But it turns out there's a whole lot of coding and planning and architecture and all sorts of really exciting stuff in Minecraft. I've been very
World
impressed with
building.
Minecraft. Yeah,
So
exactly.
cool. All right, last question for today, Chris. What brings
Yes.
you joy?
What brings me joy? You know, for a lot of my career, I've struggled to kind of figure out where my teaching voice is. You know, whether outdoor education or corporate team building or early childhood. And I'm fortunate enough that I think where I've landed, what brings me joy is learning, is seeing people learn, helping people learn, sharing how wonderful learning is. Uh, that thrills me. It fills me with exhilaration.
Excellent. And if people would like to visit the Kentucky Science Center or follow along with the amazing things that you're doing, how do they find you?
Yeah. So our website, kysciencecenter.org, is where you'll find all of the information. We're open 7 days a week, 361 days a year. We're closed Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and because we're in Louisville, Kentucky, we're also closed on the Kentucky Derby.
I was going to say Derby Day.
That's the fourth one. But we're open every day, and check out our website. We'd love to see you.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming and talking about play and STEM with us today. I have had so much fun getting to know you, and I hope everybody will come out and visit the Kentucky Science Center.
Thank you so much, Diana. It was great to see you again.